In that final scene from the last Harry Potter film, Harry, Ron, and Hermione send their children off to Hogwarts to become the next generation of witches and wizards. That's where the Broadway play Harry Potter and the Cursed Child picks up. J.K. Rowling's adored characters are now adults, and their children are the ones having adventures at Hogwarts.
The two-part, 5-hour play is nominated for 10 Tony Awards. It's already won a record 9 Olivier Awards in England, and that includes Tony nominations and Olivier wins for Jamie Parker, who stars as Harry Potter, and Noma Dumezweni, who stars as Hermione Granger. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you.
So this is doing phenomenal. I mean, people love this play.
Yeah. Yeah, and they love all the bits as well.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Right.
I still have moments going, I'm in that show. Every day walking up, I'm in that show. Curtain call, I'm in that show.
It's unusual to be in something where you
extraordinary
genuinely just want to go and watch all the bits that you're not involved with.
Really?
And when we re-teched it when we got here, and it's a chance where you suddenly go, I've never seen this bit for like a year and a half,
Right.
and then you go and watch and go, that looks brilliant. I never get a chance to see this bit.
And the 5 feet of extra stage here at the Lyric Theatre, which has made a difference as well visually when I was sitting in the auditorium. So you kind of go, there's a huge picture, there's a huge, beautiful lighting space, but the beauty of the show, that's what I love seeing, but I'll never see it again until we do those little moments and standing by the wings, but I'll never be in the audience again. So.
Could you never just ask your understudy to play you, and then you sit in the audience?
That would be too weird for the understudy.
Right,
Why would you do that?
Just to see it. I mean, because it does, so it picks up 19 years after the final book, but the details are sort of, I haven't seen it because I'm not able to see it just yet, but the details are shrouded. I want to. I've been talking about it for a long time. They're shrouded in secrecy. Why?
I was going to say, the book is out, the script is out.
Yes.
That's what's amazing. It's fantastic, it's there, but it is a script. And so before the script came out, it was hashtag keep the secrets because we don't want to let the story out because it's the 8th story in the length of Harry Potter's life. It's the 8th story. And the first time people were meeting it. Then the script came out. And then what it became was about the production, ultimately. And it was always about the production, the theatre show, the live magic that you have in front of you, the intimacy of little scenes, the movement.
And the conspiracy with the audience of, you know, the whole thing of, it's not just necessarily about what people say out loud to each other. Oftentimes it's what they say without saying anything, the unspoken script, and also what happens in the play.
The visuals are extraordinary.
And stuff. So that's a precious thing. People have cherished this since they were children. They've waited for 20 years, saved a lot of money, flown from around the world to come and sit in this room and get the story.
That's what I wanted to ask you about because, you know, people know these characters intimately.
Yeah, they do.
And I presume as a performer there are pros and cons to having an audience with certain expectations about who and what the character is, but also, you know, they know these characters. They love these characters.
But do you know what I like is, and I don't, for me, it's the production. It's the people we've been working with, from Jack Thorne, John Tiffany, J.K. That's the seal. And then Jack and John are creating with Stephen Hoggett, Christine Jones, the design. You kind of go, the people at the top of their game. And they're not... everyone's got that. No one's done anything like this ever before with Sonia and Colin.
It's so much bigger than any one of us, and if the character of the production has never been about so and so in the role of, nothing is bigger than
so
the
those
project.
characters are loved. So we're just being part of that journey for the audience, and maybe they kind of go, oh hello, I never saw them like that, I never saw them like that, but you're getting it, and then for those first 5 minutes.
Something I hear over and over again is people who bought the script and deliberately not read it because they're going to come and see it, or people who they read it and might have had criticisms of it, but then when they saw the play, they suddenly went, "Oh no, all of that suddenly makes sense. I get it now. I get it."
Right.
You know?
And that's the pleasure of Keep the Secrets. I love that now. Do you know what I mean? That understanding, because there is something that kind of. We've done it, we've seen it, we can talk about it. Okay, there's a wonderful conspiracy about it.
It's magic, right?
Totes.
Noma, you made headlines back in 2015 when you were cast as the first woman of color to play Hermione. It was sort of it was talked about, it was mentioned in many articles.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Is that a thing?
Did I do that?
But do you think it would have the same... Well, I find it really fascinating. I actually wrote my graduate school thesis on the idea of fictional characters characters being played by different people of color.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
because
yeah.
there was, remember a couple of years ago, there was controversy. Donald Glover had made remarks that he wanted to play Spider-Man, and people said, well, no, Spider-Man's not black. He's
James
white.
Bond,
Or black James Bond. Idris
yeah.
Elba has been bandied about as the next James Bond. And I wonder, do you think we would have the same reaction today? In other words, a lot of buzz, or do you think that it would still be something that people would talk about?
The story that happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Because what we have is a representation on film of the beautiful Emma Watson playing Hermione. And they started with the books, but what a lot of people do is watch film. Not a lot of people read books, but a lot of people started reading books because of the Harry Potter stories, and that's what's wonderful. But film imagery is a thing that's constant. That's what we see. So, especially as women of colour, you see, was that my representation? I didn't see myself there. So I get the opportunity to play this part, and that's a different. Wow, okay, because I've got to now shift what I thought that character was.
Right, even for you, you have to shift that.
Well, but because it was my version from the books.
Yeah.
I love the books, so it was my version of that. Emma shifted it for me in terms of the film, but then for 7 years, all those 8 films, became Hermione.
Right.
And so now for me to get in the theatrical form, this version of playing Hermione, this is now mine. So it's shifted a lot of people's points of view of how she's supposed to be seen. So I still think, yes, it would still be the same. We're still shifting and slated, but we're part of the conversation now, going, come on, I love that you did a thesis on
That's
that.
nice.
Amazing.
Well, clearly it's working, because how many Tony nominations and blah, blah, blah.
How many?
Awards? I think the shift
Because you
is
guys
complete.
are amazing.
Yeah.
But I tell you, John's amazing, Stephen's amazing.
That's the thing, it's
Jack's
been part of a
amazing.
gang, isn't it? It's being something that's bigger than
Well, that's
you.
what I
and
find
it's
really interesting that I get from you guys about the experience of the play, because I asked you specifically about playing those characters, and you sort of went back to the entire production.
absolutely.
That you can't have the characters without the magic surrounding it and everything else that sort of brings the story to life.
If it was just us, there'd be no props, costumes. We'd just be us shouting into the dark.
Which could be entertaining, but not this.
No one would pay for it.
Yes,
no one would pay for it.
I mean, if you've written, directed, acted the whole thing, if it's just about, if you've done everything, then fine, make it about you.
This world is so rich, and I suppose that's what the world is so rich, that there is no single individual. Yes, we all do lovely things, and we get in the shiny part. Do you know what I mean? In terms of nominations, we get the shiny, but we are in an ensemble. And
when people come out and they say that they've loved it, they love all of it. There are 70-something scenes, some of which are very short, and the whole thing has to knit together and flow with a kind of, it's not a musical, but with a kind of musicality. And that takes this huge company of actors who are all like making desks and pens and chairs and stuff disappear and stuff.
You seem to really enjoy working with each other.
But you've got these jets.
You guys are like two peas in a pod. It's really cute. It's really cute.
Talking,
I know. You guys are adorable.
Thank you.
Jamie and Noma, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it was so wonderful.
Thank you.
Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is playing at the Lyric Theater in New York. And, of course, you can watch the 72nd Annual Tony Awards from Radio City Music Hall in New York. That is Sunday night, June 10th at 8, 7 Central, only on CBS.